What that is about a ferry, and that was at a meeting in 2019, and it was about the policy. So the point of this one is that we have done 2 petitions, and they were presented to the Legislative Assembly yesterday morning. One was for a multi-purpose sports stadium in Woden, and the other one was about Phillip Pool and opening Phillip Pool for the summer, and then getting a longer term solution for a 50-metre pool in Woden, whether it's on that site or something else, but just having a look and sorting it out. Interestingly, the multi-purpose sports stadium got a bit of a media attention, and it was picked up by Basketball ACT. And on the back page of the Canberra Times today, there was an article about it, and he was on, David Simpson from Basketball ACT was on 666 this morning too, talking about how there's a severe shortage of indoor sports facilities, and that with the loss of the Woden Basketball Stadium and the CIT that had a court, they have been struggling for quite a number of years. It's not only basketball, it's all the other sports that need to access indoor sports facilities. And with the COVID, he says a lot of people have started playing sports, and so that's exacerbated the problem. So he was advocating for facilities. He was advocating for facilities. And off the back of the petition, he supported the petition, and so did the volleyball people, the netball people, comps, they all supported it. And so when it was discussed, additional indoor sporting facilities over the last 24 hours, the petition has done its job to just somewhere. Yeah. So that's really good. I was going to play this little video, but that might be beyond. This is the no sound. Tech guy. Tech guy. Might get sick of me screaming out tech guy. You might just have to stay here, I think. Do you know how to make sound?
Playing earlier.
Was playing earlier. Never mind. I can tell you what it says because I've watched it so many times. What it says is that it's ACT government policy to not own
a multi-sport stadium, which in other areas.
Did you hear that? Oh, forget it. I'll tell you what it is. Just turn it off. What it is a vet berry. That was Robert Issel, who used to be in Phillip, and he used to own an indoor sports facility and in Victoria. And he was saying the importance of indoor sports. Why don't we have one in this area? A vet said it's not the ACT government policy to own or run indoor sports facilities. And then somebody said, well, what about the pools? Because they own and contract out the pools. And she said, oh, I thought somebody might ask that question. And then, yeah, except for ours, which is privatised, but there are 6 that the government owns and contracts out the management of. And then she said that it's the government's policy to support individual sports. So they support basketball ACT, they support netball ACT, hockey ACT, and they've got their stadiums. Belco's, basketball's in Belco. There's 3 of them, netball and hockey and tennis indoor in Lynham. They support those sports and those facilities. So I think that the policy needs to be reviewed, because that leaves us out in the cold, because those sports don't have the resources to go and build themselves, buy the land and build themselves another facility in the south. And we're not going to get every sport having an individual facility in the south. So we want a multi-purpose, so all the sports can use it. And no individual sport is going to be able to do it, or even collectively. So that's why we're saying the government needs to own buy the land or use the land that they've got, build a multi-purpose sports stadium, and then lease out the management of it like they do with the pools, except for Woden. And the pool, we did have a discussion about it last month. We haven't really made any progress. I personally think it would be nice to be able to talk about what are the issues, the problems, what are the potential solutions, and like try and work through a good outcome so that we do have a pool here. But it appears that Alongo is now our pool. The problem is that I find that a lot of parents are in their cars driving their kids around to sports facilities. Yeah. If they were if we had them locally though, kids can be a bit more independent and get to the facilities themselves, and then maybe get picked up on the way home. Or next to a major public transport interchange would be handy, because all the buses hub in from all over the south into Woden. So if you were within walking distance from there, we get a bit more independence with access. So anyway, that's what we're advocating for. I have, can you guys hear? I have
yeah, so that's
you're working on Facebook. I'll be back. Oh.
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
So they're changing all this into a bus and train.
Something here, that, you know, that staircase up to Woden's Mountain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, like, you can't just ignore the situation, because the site is zoned for a pool and an ice rink. So we're building a new ice rink in Tuggeranong. That will leave this one out in the cold. They've told me they're going to board it up when the new ice rink is built. So it's not a solution just to death by 1,000 cuts, just to let it slide away until we all scream blue murder about a derelict site, and then what will happen then? You know, we need to be proactive and have a solution here. So we will, in our district level planning, try and consult various solutions. So that is the pool. So now I just wanted to mention the lovely Christmas carols. So it's pretty. Yeah. Yeah.
Just because we do have a shadow planning minister.
Yeah.
In terms of.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in terms of, as you said, we've got a list of the schools that's been breached. It's not just actually the individual lease, it's also the plan. It's the plan that this area should have the medical. So, how do you see this playing out really in terms of, it can't be ignored?
Yeah, but it's never 1,000 cuts until everything just folds and nobody cares and it folds.
Should be ignored. And I
Yeah.
know Julia and Jeremy topic. I'm actually not quite sure. Happy to dive in a bit more, but even get back to Fiona. I know it's a planning issue. It's probably being run more from our side than by Julia and Jeremy.
Absolutely.
Because it's a local.
But I think it's getting that pressure right about there is a plan, there's a lease,
And it's not being met.
Yeah, yeah. And that only
It's
has
out
the
of order.
benefit really for all these years of that site. So
It's out of order. The only thing we can do about it is be government.
yeah,
Those rules are followed.
But you really can't take the pool off of private owner either. That's an issue.
You can
Well,
actually, if they don't.
If they don't,
you actually could. And they shouldn't be allowed to just sell it now to developers. No, that's a massive windfall.
No.
Because they didn't pay that sort of.
Guys, hear anything?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm making
I I'm just wondering if anybody.
Sorry.
Yeah, we want a proactive solution, not just waiting until nobody cares anymore and it's gone. That's the death by 1,000 cuts.
I'll catch up with Jeremy and Julia on this. I know they really have. Yeah, we'll give you some follow-up.
Does it work?
Didn't hear that. Peter's going to follow up the pool lease and see what we can do. All right. Not sure about this hybrid thing. Anyway, got to try it. Okay, so everybody, we're having Christmas carols. Can you see the Christmas carols? On the 8th on the town square, we've got, look at that, I can zoom in. We have got choirs and musicians. So we've got Sophie Edwards. She's got some young people that are going to come and sing. Then the Woden Valley Youth Choir. And Sophie herself, who will do some pop songs influenced by folk, jazz and pop. And then we have the Jeff and Dee's trio who do, oh, that's a bit of a fun, isn't it? Internet connection unstable. They do cruisy, bluesy originals and soulful ballads. So anyway, I think it will be nice to have some soul on the town square because, you know, we had the Contented Soul and then we had the Soul Bar and now we've got no soul. So we'll bring back the soul. We'll have some ballads. And then we'll have the Australian Rugby Choir. And we had them at the Music Bar The Ponds and they were really fun. So they're going to engage everybody. That should be good fun. So it's not going to be all Christmas carols. It'll be a mixture. 3 hours of Christmas carols is a lot. We have an art market. There'll be art, photography, candles, salts, jam, scarves, bags, all sorts of things. We have around a dozen or so.
Yeah, okay.
You guys need to mute. I reckon it's you, David. David and Sissy. These are like Dave.
Yeah.
I'll mute you. These are interactive. I muted you, Dave. And Westfield is going to, or has, given 10 Christmas hampers. I've got them at home ready and waiting, and we'll have lucky draw, you know, give tickets out as people come in, and then we will draw them out of the hat, these 10 beautiful Christmas hampers. So anyway, it's shaping up pretty well. Oh, sausage sizzle, free sausage sizzle. There we are. Oh, and maybe bring a chair. Bring your friends and family and maybe a chair. We'll have gazebos and what have you, and hopefully the main thing is that the weather is nice. Woden Community Service has been fantastic. They're going to come along and they're going to make baubles for the tree. We've got the tree. We bought the tree, the Christmas tree. They're going to do activities with the kids, put baubles and things on the trees. And
you're going to shut his door?
No, your door. So, that's all right.
Thank you. And Woden Community Service is also bringing all the music equipment so that everybody doesn't have to lug in and out. So they'll bring that for everyone to use. And our Woden Blade from Woden Arts, our pop-up arts officer, she has been helping with all that. So it's a combined thing with all of us working together. Very good. Yeah, very good. So one thing that we've been working on is, you know, it's very difficult when you sort of don't agree with everything that's happening in your local community. And when you raise the issues, you get accused of being negative and moaning and whinging all the time. Well, you know, there's a few issues that are valid to raise. And so anyway, here, if we might, like with the district level plan, put out a vision, put out some ideas and say, this is, you know, some ideas of how we think it could work. in a positive way and see if we can try that way. That's what I keep trying, people tell me to do. And we have put forward positive ideas. So hopefully we'll have more luck. Yes, Kathy. Yeah. Yeah.
And Chris feels actually going to be even she doesn't have to
yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So that's the truth. It is very difficult because we do raise issues, and you know, we've written so many submissions, and we do the Your Say. It's very divisive. The Your Say doesn't provide a forum for people to be informed by each other and their views, so it's quite divisive. And this forum, if you yeah, this is more about it, so we might as well get on to that. I hope there's nobody waiting to admit, and you can't tell. So this is the information session, and I think this is telling myself, because what it says is it's not a collaborative thing, it's not a discussion, it's information session. We'll tell you more about. So it says who we'll hear from: Chris, the infrastructure projects team, Transport Canberra, ACT Health, because it's covering a range of things: the Canberra Hospital campus, the east side of Woden, which is the light rail and the CIT, facilities and vibrant green public spaces. See, this is where we probably have a different view, where they'll think that that's terrific, and I'll probably think, I don't know that that's that terrific. The road closures and traffic diversions. And then at the end, you probably can't see it, but it says about you can ask some questions. Oh, and we'll have some time. Can you see that? We'll have some time. Yeah. So I don't mean to be cynical, but I've had these experiences before where you'll be lucky to get a question in, one each, and it will be whatever answer you get, and there's no follow-up sort of discussion about it. Because sadly what happens is, you know, somebody raises a question, then you don't sort of get people responding on that theme. So the next person will ask a question about something completely different. And so you just lose the conversation, any hope of conversation. That's what I find with these things. Leonie? Yeah.
Stakeholders.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely think we should all attend that forum and ask questions. If you can attend, because these are our opportunities to try and, you know, raise issues, so we should do it. So yeah, that's at Canberra College on the 7th. So I'll just talk about this and then hand over to Caroline. So this is a vision that, I don't know, we haven't actually talked about it as a vision, but we just said Woden is the CBD of Canberra South and has great potential due to its location and accessibility by public transport and paths from surrounding districts. Our goal is to develop Woden as a destination, as a community centre that will attract both locals, including those living in the towers, and the rest of Canberra South. We want to give locals the option to stay local and create a community where they have fun, engage with others, and where local businesses can thrive. It takes great public spaces and community facilities to attract people to the centre, to create lively, interesting places that people want to come again and again. I think it says under there. So anyway, that is not the be all and end all, but it's that sort of thing, you know. We want to have a place that attracts people to the centre. Oh, and thank you, Dione. Looking at things positively in that way. All right, now I'm going to try and share. Hello, everybody online. I'm going to try and share the screen for Caroline. Will that come? Sort of, not really. Oh, well, it's moving anyway. You tell me when to move it.
Oh, could I move it?
Yeah, you can if you want, or you can stand up in front of it and point at stuff.
Everybody who's not actually here, we've got a proper pointer.
You better do the blank side so it doesn't write on the thing. There's a pointer in that bag down there.
This will. I didn't expect to have a pointer, so I'm not planning to point to anything. And hopefully, people not here hear me. I'm just going to talk briefly about the wildlife corridor and Mawson funds. Go on to the. This is a little bit. This is the ball lines going right. Absolutely, it's just so good with this weather. They've just gone and gone and gone. If you go to the next. And so they're looking for things that weren't even shovel ready. Shovel for this, although they did have chainsaws. There weren't things that had no approvals, no training, no nothing. Chopping cotoneasters down obviously was in that category, and so they did it. However, that's what they did. After that, I've heard many, many different stories as to what they planned to do. But it possibly doesn't really matter what the stories are, because whatever it was, what they actually did was have, for a period of time, a random amount of mulch dumped there, and maybe about half of it, maybe less, actually spread out very thickly on the planting bed. So that's where it was, where we had the party, the owner organised the party of the ponds in March, and we talked to the government about, we'd really quite like to plant a few trees. You've got all this space here, surely we can plant some trees. So after a few months of negotiating, we got permission to plant. We didn't get permission to plant trees, of course, because we should pick the next two slides before you see it. Go on a slide or two. Yeah, wrong way. And then this. Okay, this one.
Missing three. I don't know why.
This actually shows the area where we're planting. Okay, well.
There you go.
Basically, from Palace Street to just sort of at the bottom of Enderbury Street. Basically, that was determined by where there was reasonable mulch. And hopefully a bit up here past the ponds. You want to go to the next photo? Yeah, you can see our issues here are quite straightforward. Next This is interesting. We've got 2 slides.
I know, we're just really clever.
We're just overperforming here with 2 slides. But, the issues here are there's electricity line there. We've got electricity above. That means no trees. End of story, no trees. And below, a bit from it, we have water and sewage, which means no mechanical making of holes, no mechanical excavation. So matics are your friend, particularly if you happen to be in a La Nina year and it rains and rains a lot. Thank God, because without that, Jude would not be standing up anymore, I don't think. Jude has been one of the absolutely wonderful people on this. So we managed to get a small grant, $7,000 towards costs for this, and we've already overspent on the plants, but this is going to be okay because one of the things that we did budget for was hiring a water tanker every month. And at the rate things are going, I don't think
it's a usual requirement.
It's a usual requirement in Canberra. I somehow suspect that we are not going to need all our money for water. We have actually, next slide. We've had quite a few working bees of various which unfortunately there have been various random times based on partly we just bought our heating plants from Bruny, Australia, and then a week later they announced lockdown. And we were all told that the TCCS didn't want the volunteers going out and doing anything. And as long as no one reports this, I can say that.
You're doing it.
I can say that there may have been some people who may have done their individual exercise on the horse ponds.
Your hour of recreation.
Yeah, hour of recreation. Some people's hour of recreation was there. But of course, none of that was organised. And actually, because TCCS really didn't want it to, it wasn't very organised. And I'm sure a lot of more people would have done their hour of recreation there if I had been organised it. But anyway, this next slide is the car or friend's car. Mine wasn't big enough for the Woden Australia plants. And then I remember I told you the bull vine's growing really well. That was the route. That is tube stock for Green Australia. That was the route. There was no soil left in it at all. It was grown so much. I had to basically destroy the tubes to get them out. But they have absolutely flourished because it's been so wet. What did you call them? Bulbine.
Bulbine glaucoma. They're talk close to this so they can hear you online.
Oh, is this mic working at all?
Is it? Good.
So I'm trying to sort of do the mic so that everyone's hitting. This is a picture from the top of the hill where we've done some weeding, and you can actually see the native plants. Now we've got some bits protected from the lawn mowing. The billy buttons and the bluebells have got a fighting chance, and then they're looking beautiful actually. That's a grevillea and bottle brushes. The bottle brushes are actually the predominant plant that we've planted for a number of reasons. Firstly, they grow really well around here. They appear to be pretty much indestructible, and that is probably the number one thing you're looking for. But Cotoneaster fitted that, so it's only the number one thing. Secondly, we want native, and thirdly, we want things that's going to support our native wildlife, our birds, our bees, our insects, etc. And so it's not all bottle brush, of course, but given that next to the fence line, our requirements were to have something a bit higher than the fence line, but no more than 3 metres high. So we couldn't plant anything which resembled a decent tree, but we want to have something that will look like a nice hedge. And so hopefully we're going to have some beautiful hedge bits. Now, we've done an awful lot of planting, so as you can see in this one, the other activity which we're moving into, weeding. But of course, it's not all plants. As you can see, we have wildlife, and the babies have all grown up. In fact, I haven't seen the ducks for a while. I'm wondering have our ducks gone to? And I'd love to know the answer to that. They're not in the pond anymore. But we do have humans as well. This is Wildlife Corridor, and we are part of the environment. There's a little library. There's a bike rack. The childcare up the hill, put in a go round and find things track, I suppose you'd call. This gentleman reckons he actually has caught redfin in the pond, which, well, I was stunned. How did it even get there? Someone must have introduced it. They must have. So I guess one of the things I'm really interested in, I should say is what else would you like to see happen in the ponds? I mean, the wildlife corridor along the fence line, it's pretty well, it's going to happen. It's happening.
Can it be a beach and a swimming pool for them? The beach one side?
Excellent idea. Yeah.
We'll work on that.
We can work on that. I'd really like to see Yarrawonga Creek turned back into a creek rather than, it offends me when people call it the drain. Really, yeah.
I think I call it that to make the point, though, that it's not a nice creek. It could be so much better, particularly at the southern end where there's less, you know, where the water's just feeding into it, as opposed to the Curtin North end where it all sort of flows through. But surely the southern end could be naturalised.
Oh, certainly up in the Farrer part, it's, you know, it wouldn't take much. A little bit of dynamite and fluids.
North Curtin would be ideal, opposite where they sold that land for the diplomatic.
Yeah.
If they wanted to have a water feature
Yeah.
in the diplomatic area, that'd be perfect.
You could have a really nice water feature there. Well, we actually proposed that in our submission to the NCA.
Yeah. Anyway, there's quite a lot of possibilities apart from a wildlife corridor. And we as being Friends of Mawson Pond have all organised to have a larger public meeting just before lockdown. I sussed out the Austrian club and we got ourselves a room with coffee and possibly cake, and then we had a lockdown instead. So we sort of lost momentum in that a bit, but next year, at the very least, we'll repeat the party that we had in March and spend some time thinking about what people would like to see on that space. Because, you know, we can certainly influence the government, and if they're small enough, we may even be able to afford it ourselves. Now, if you like planting trees and weeding, we of course are the best place to go. But if you go back one screen, Fiona, you'll find that we are not the only people. But Kathy Isles represents Friends of Mount Taylor here, and
We've got plenty more.
if you're looking for weeds, there are plenty of weeds. These are two places where you can find local groups. So if you want weeding, watering, planting, there's plenty of things to do. Or if you want to find more about us, there's two things to do. That's our email address. It's a Gmail address. It's mawsonponds@gmail.com. So hopefully that's really memorable. Just think of Mawson Ponds. Everyone knows gmail.com now. And we have a Facebook page. Again, remember Mawson Ponds, search for that in Facebook and you'll find it. And it seems to have produced a lot of pleasure for people walking up and down the pathway during lockdown. And I'm just really hoping that it'll all really grow. And thank you to all the volunteers, some of whom were organised and some of whom weren't. And particularly during lockdown, there was a group spread a hell of a lot more. I'd already told the government we weren't prepared to spread all the mulch, that it cost too much in physio's bills if we did that. But during lockdown, a bunch of people decided they wanted mulch. That was great. Kathy, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that party in the park was absolutely amazing. It's like, and with any group, you're only ever going to have a core. But the fact that you had that big community around you that were
great, Jack. So I think you have that as an annual event, a gathering. The more you use that space and the community start to own it, the more likely that some of the development towards the Woden end, might be less likely.
I don't know about that bit, but yeah, it was great. Fiona was the organiser of it, and we're certainly planning to do it again.
Yeah.
Around the same sort of
I
time.
think autumn's another walk by Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Christmas one is the same sort of model as the style of event as the Mawson Ponds one.
Yeah. Well, the Christmas one came first, so the Mawson Ponds is the same style. Yes.
You're familiar with the Blackholder Cops, COPSE, in between the pond and Mawson shops? There's a cluster of trees.
Oh, yeah. Yes, where the government's just cleaned out the underneath store.
Poplars.
Have they done it all,
If you're meaning the ones just next to the creek, just over Mawson Drive, just on the Woden side of Mawson Drive, just next to the creek, that has all in the last, that's all been, the undergrowth there has been entirely cleared out. The dwelling, if it was a dwelling, is no longer there.
Yeah, I took some photographs of it before, months ago before they cleared it. There's obviously some enterprising local kids set up a table instead of chairs, and it's all well hidden from anyone else. Incredible amount of rubbish, but
Yeah.
the table set up was quite enterprising. I'm sure it's bicycle students. Obviously, there's another group of locals that are obviously very enterprising.
Yes.
Setting up community facilities out of sight from everybody else, bit of drug-related paraphernalia.
Yes, yes. The ACT, they haven't managed to interface very well with government. I talked to some of the TCCS people. You know how we now have bollards at the back of, at the bottom of Bertachie Place, there to stop those enterprising people driving on, which is unfortunate. Apparently they also chopped, well, there's a tree on the outside they chopped down. But yeah, look, yeah, it sounds like you know more about their enterprises than I do.
I walked past down and on that side, so between it and the drains, which is correct. And noticed a couple of cars coming in, see a lot of rubbish in one.
Yeah.
Photograph and I noticed further out and sort of table set up. Easily sort of doesn't more.
Well, it would actually be really nice to have a picnic table somewhere, possibly, how should we put it, more accessible, a bit more sunlight.
Yeah. Any questions for Caroline about the wildlife corridor or the friends?
No, just
very cool.
Keeping us involved through the whole planting. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Caroline.
Unfortunately, I do know, because when I was in the assembly, we did two relevant territory plan variations. The bit up at the Mawson end, the Woden side next to Mawson Drive, just next to where we've been talking about, that's RZ5. That's, can you remember how many stories? It's a market, eight,
6 and 8, I think.
8 stories. It's supposed to be a market building.
There's too many market buildings.
Yeah, there's a lot of market buildings.
Yes. Then the land between there and Mawson Pond and Melrose Drive is zoned as RZ2, a lot of it. It's been zoned as RZ2 since, I was going to say the dawn of time, but the beginning of ACT zoning. But once you get north, Woden side of Melrose Drive's intersection, that has all been rezoned to RZ5. And next to the creek, it could be 6 stories high, but down next to the existing RZ2 area, it goes down to maximum 3 stories. You're not allowed to build in the flood zone, but have you looked at the flood zone on at map high? They seem to be of the belief that's entirely contained within the creek boundaries. I don't know if they will actually, if that actually is going to be true with our next really, really big bit of rain, but yeah, don't know. And as someone who walks along there regularly, there is, there's been a reasonable amount of surveyor activity. The land release program has in its last year of the program selling off what they're calling the Athlon Drive precinct. And it's a lot of dwellings. Can you remember 900 or 600? I can't remember which, but it's getting close to 1,000 dwellings they're talking about in that area. So that is the plans.
Yep. Basically, it's all high density housing except the bit opposite Marist, where the sediment pond is, from the roundabout, Melrose Drive roundabout, to the underpass between the two schools. That bit is sort of saved, but the rest of it is all high density housing.
Well, even some of what you're talking about is actually RZ2. It's been RZ2 sort of forever. We just ignored that.
Yeah, it's a real shame, because I think that corridor, like, it could have, it's a connector between Southlands and the Woden Town Centre. It's a great connector. Yeah. And all the people that are moving through there, the cyclists and the pedestrians getting onto cyclists and pedestrians, it's a very busy corridor. And it could have, it could have some more community activity through there, because people do move through there. And that's where you want your community stuff, where people are moving through. Leonie?
Yes, I think that's excellent, because that encourages people like to walk side by side, and if you've only got a narrow path,
It's actually wide enough for side by side. Where the problem is the morning commute, right? Because there are so many bikes. You have people going for a walk, scooters and bikes. It really actually,
can you hear that online?
You have to really look.
It's only 2.5 metres. No, the standard would, that's a minimum for a trunk. So it probably doesn't meet the current standard.
Probably not. And sometimes it needs replacing. Really badly.
We can hear a bit, Fiona.
Hello, is that you, Maria?
Yeah, we can hear a bit, but a lot of it's sort of disjointed because we can't get the see the screen properly.
Yeah. Can you see that screen with the white box in the middle of it?
Yeah, I can see the screen, but it's hard to distinguish particular images or particular, text or anything.
Okay. And this is a bit of a problem having all right, we'll try and talk into the closer to the speaker. So speaking about commuter cycleways, and that's where the problem is with the shared paths when you get the commuters going through. And that corridor between, it comes from Tuggeranong, past Mawson, out past the plaza, and then onto the city. And so, what is that white box? How annoying. God, how annoying. Anyway, we'll just have to work around the white box. So here you can see the cycle path comes up. So this is the one at the moment. It is shared. It comes up through Woden, and then it crosses over Carruthers Street, then it goes up Deacon side a bit, and then it turns into, tell me if this is right, Richard, because you're a cyclist, it turns into On Road.
C4 actually off-road all the way. So instead of going Adelaide Avenue, you go onto Brother Street, you cross the Brother Street Bridge, and then down around the Vint Opens.
Or is it this one where you come down, you go down here to Yarralumla and then around the lake? That's the C4.
Yeah.
That's a windy, it's not a commuter.
Yeah.
So most people would stick on Adelaide Avenue. You underdrive Adelaide Avenue and go down Capital Circuit onto King Drive. This one here.
Yeah.
And over the bridge up.
Yeah. So that is a good, so this section here that's on Ryde, that does deter people from cycling through there. There are a lot of people that don't like it on the road. Yeah, because you've got 80 kilometre traffic with people trying to ride their bikes and trying to cross on ramps and off ramps. So it does need to be looked at. You know, so the attributes of, you know, like how do you encourage cycling if that's what you want to do? It's got to be safe, and that on-road bit of Adelaide Avenue is not that great. It's got to be reasonably direct. If people are going to be, if you're going to try and encourage that commuting culture, and it's got to be reasonably convenient to get on and off it. And, you know, not have too many traffic lights or impediments along the way. So it's got to be reasonably convenient to use. So there are, I don't know, you can't really see that, which is a bit, that bloody box, how annoying. Do tech kids know what that box is? I don't know where it came from. Anyway, we'll work our way around it, but so the commitments by the government, the Greens 2020 election commitment was building a large-scale cycle corridor. So they had 7 big large-scale corridors, and Woden, upgrading Woden to the city was the first one. And then they had the Labor Party had a feasibility study to construct an off-road cycle path along Adelaide Avenue. So assumably that picks up that on-road bit now. Like, I guess that's what Labor is. Oh, you don't get the box on the thing. Labor's focusing on that that on-road bit, I guess.
Yes, well, it's weird that they would have commitment just mentioned Adelaide Avenue because clearly that's only part of the route.
Yeah.
So really.
So I guess
the Greens talked about Woden to Sewage.
Yeah.
A comprehensive bikeway, and as you said, that was the number one priority.
Yeah.
And both Labor and Greens mentioned that election commitment in the context of planning, just feasibility studies, in the context of planning the light rail route.
Yeah.
To Woden.
Yeah. So whether you agree with light rail or not, like we're not trying to make the case one way or the other for light rail, but if the corridor is being looked at and planned, we want it to look at a comprehensive cycleway from Woden to the city, not piecemeal, because at the moment, the ACOM contract, the $93 million ACOM contract, it talks about looking at shared paths to the stations, like so coming out of the suburbs to the stations. Sure, that's got to be done, but there's some serious pinch points in here. So if you once you come up past Phillip Oval, it gets quite narrow there, and so assumably you've got the light rail and the cycleway is there too. So how does that work? Will that work? Will the cycleway need to be moved a bit, maybe just a bit, but who knows? When you get up to the big roundabout north of Woden, presumably that's going to be signalised, is my understanding. So how, at the moment it's grade separated and the cycleway goes under. So will it still be grade separated, or will there be traffic lights that the cyclists have to stop at traffic lights and then wait before they move on? Then there's all the overpasses and underpasses, how the cycleway will conflict with them or interface. It's about how will it all interface. There's the massive Mint interchange, like, so will the cycleway be anywhere near, like there's on and off ramps, how does the cycleway get through the Mint interchange? Then there's all the on-off ramps at the moment on the current alignment. And then you've got to get around, you've got to get over Commonwealth Bridge, which at the moment for commuting, it's probably pretty small that, you know, the pedestrians and the commuters trying to get over Commonwealth Bridge. Then you've got London Circuits being raised, which is going to create another big intersection there, like a really big intersection. So how is the cycleway interfacing with that intersection, or does it not, or who knows? But all we're saying is that we don't want piecemeal, we don't want to have to go back and retrofit things, you know, later and go, oops. So we want it to be considered in planning the corridor. It's a multi-use corridor. So even the pedestrian paths, you know, like, are they going to be, you might not end up with one that goes all the way from City to Woden, because you've got all, assumably you're going to get development around. So where do the paths go? Anyway, so that's just a thing to look at it.
On those three words you're using, sorry?
Direct.
Yeah. Slightly semantic, but I think also if you're useful. Use the word direct, pretty well everybody's going to think on road or, you know, separated with a cement divider. I think efficient is probably a better word, because efficient also relates reasonably direct, but also that's another issue you were talking about. You don't want fragmented traffic. One of the issues in Canberra is we're becoming a less efficient city. And part of what we're doing in planning is we're basically filleting the transport corridors, whether it's cycling or cars, and it actually makes the city transport-wise less efficient.
Okay, so the point there for the onliners is that instead of using the word direct, to use the word efficient. Kathy? Yeah.
How they, and there's been some really good stuff done in Sydney, there's some really awful stuff as well. So they're looking at how to make light rail, walking and cycling with their new systems. And I'm only going to Redfern, some of the best stuff there, which has got you know, separate cycleways, walkways, it's got trees and shade.
Yeah, trees and shade. Yeah.
So, and as a woman, I would never use those on-road bike paths. So there's a gender issue around those issues as well. What I think is safe is different from a male who's cycling. So at the moment, for me to cycle to work, I have to take quite a roundabout route, which is nice, but it adds 10 or 15 minutes to my journey, which means I'm more likely to be another form of transport. So we do have to look at those other elements in the range of uses as well.
Yeah.
And what I think is safe is different from what my partner.
So yeah, Kathy just made the point. We have to look at a whole range of issues, and I'm being told that it is happening. It's just that we don't get to hear it. But Marissa has done some work on cycle stuff, and there is an office of active travel in Canberra, but this is a major commuter connecting the north and the south, and we just want to be assured that it's being considered from one end to the other properly. Were you going to?
Both parties committed to look at the feasibility of that bikeway in the context of light rail planning. The contract was massive, $93 million for planning, went to consultant.
ACOM.
I can't imagine $93 million just for planning. It's mind-boggling without building it. Anyway, so we have been through that with a fine-tooth comb. You've read it as well. It's 170 pages. It's a massive planning exercise. The word bicycle appears twice.
Yeah, I know. And there's major interfaces that we've identified.
There's no specific requirement. There's no specific requirement to AECOM to look at the Woden Pacific Bikeway.
Yeah.
Now, they've got a massive lot of stuff to do. Why, in their own volition, do they do something that's not in the contract? Now, Pedal Power has taken this up with major projects, and they've said that the contract does cover active travel. But you mentioned what it does cover is the feed-in routes to the bus, to the stops, which is very, very important, and the bike racks and everything else around stops. But the contract does not mention the overall planning the trunk route and how it fits in the planning of light rail, especially at the pinch points, where you've already got C4 bike route, shared path coming down from the Yamba roundabout to the interchange, following the creek. That's where the light rail track is going to go. And we've asked questions where we haven't been able to, maybe Marissa can find out for us, how are you going to fit both the path and the light rail route in that corridor? And how does the AECOM contract going to address the overall planning to fulfill your election?
And I've been given the same assurances as what you were from the minister that active travel is part of that.
We got that, and it's misleading because if you read it, no such thing in the contract. He mentioned, the minister mentioned, oh, active travel is covered. Yeah, it is, but it's only in relation to feeder routes to the tram stops and bike racks and paths. So why should AECOM look at overall bikeway from Woden Pacific if they're not specifically asked to do it? So it doesn't.
I thought it was pretty simple. You'd say within 5 to 10 days of the city, or the road, if you've got efficient active travel, transport, just as you've got the northbound corridor, a portion of people are going to use that instead of paying the tram, so they get the benefit of excess time and so forth. So arguably, an efficient commuter active transport route parallel to whichever tram route is competition for it. So there's a disincentive in the sense to really put money into really good world-class active transport.
The bikeway
will
affect the economics of the light rail.
Yep, the point is given Canberra and its history and the character, a significant lot of people would commute. Commuting routes you've got, whether it's cycling or the e-scooters that are now giving profit. Better those facilities are, the more people use them. And yeah, they might use the tram here and there, or light rail here and there.
And ultimately, you have multiple like riding tram and there's the tram.
Yes, and there's a feeder thing. It's the direct parallel.
There's the first and last mile thing, and then there's the commuter trunk corridor. And you get cyclists that want to do the whole commuter trunk thing, and they've got to plan it for the future, because with e-bikes, more and more people potentially, if we want to encourage that sort of thing, more and more people will be doing it. It's 10 Ks between Woden and the city. It's doable. People do it. Yeah, and so you need the...
And also, the commuter route. The commuter route will be used.
Yeah. Well,
also, you've got to keep in mind that, okay, this would be a bikeway route from Civic to Woden. But if you're riding from Woden Town Centre to Yarralumla, you would just Woden Town Centre to Curtin. So it's not just for commuting full distance.
yeah, people will do part thereof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's about the future and making sure that we have the corridor wide enough for the future for the separated, have it separated and have it wide enough that it can cater for growing commuter cycling.
Pedal Power also had some issues about Easty Street you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Dione would love to talk about that.
I shouldn't start.
Don't get us started. Yeah.
How are the online people going?
They're very tricky. I can't even see
Had a
them.
whole kind of period of number silence.
It's terrible. Has anyone left there?
Still here?
You're still here? Maria's there and Paul's there? I don't know. Hardcore to stay there. We need to put another microphone is what we need. The trunk corridor being, the interface is being considered while light rail is being planned. This is not an endorsement of light rail or not. It's just saying if you're spending $93 million on planning, please have a look at the interfaces for the whole corridor from Woden through to the city to make sure that it meets the needs of the future and that it's safe, efficient and, you know, attracts people to it. Yeah. Okay, so we were going to move on to Easty Street and the cycling because there's an issue with the trunk route crossing. Is it Wilbur? Yeah.
So, as you know, Easty is going to become a busy street. It's fairly quiet now, and the trunk route crosses Wilbur.
Maybe you have to come and talk up. If you're going to talk, maybe you should come and talk here or at that microphone down the back there. Hopefully, is working.
So Easty is you got to get across Easty to get to Garrett and the park. Okay? So the office workers who want to get to the park have got to cross Easty, and Easty's going to get quite busy.
Buses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's two points where you can cross. One is at Arabanu Park.
Yep.
And that's going to have a priority
Bus
zebra
layover?
crossing.
Can't hear.
Oh,
That's a good thing because there's another crossing where the extension of Matilda Street comes out and crosses Easty, heads towards the skate park and Curtin and Garrett, Hughes and Garrett. Now that we asked for a zebra crossing there as well, but they're not wanting to do it. So that's one problem because it should be that connector there connects up to Matilda Street. So there should be a zebra crossing there, and then down in Wilbo. Do you all know where Wilbo is? Where Easty.
the police station, the cop shop.
Yeah, the police station. So the traffic's going to come down Easty, turn into Wilbo, and then down Cull. So the C4 crosses Wilbo there, the C4 bike route, shared path, and at present it's not a problem that it's not a protected crossing because there's not so much traffic. And cars just roll through and bikes roll through. But it's going to get busy. Now, interestingly, when the government sold to Hindmarsh the block for what's it called?
N12. Yep. Yeah.
They sold part of the path. Remember that?
Yep.
It was outrageous. A public asset was sold by the LDA to the developer. So as part of the DA approval, the developer has to pay for a new crossing because they have to realign it. And we have an agreement with Hindmarsh, the developer, that would be a protected crossing. Single lane each way for cars and a protected crossing. Now, the planners for the CTI are talking about a traffic light there. Yet another traffic light.
There's going to be another one now.
As if we haven't got enough traffic lights in Woden.
Yeah.
So it'll just mean you'll have to stop your bike, right? And if you're walking, you'll just have to stop, press the button and wait, right? Whereas if it's protected crossing, like a zebra crossing, you can roll through on your bike, cars slow down and then pick up the pace as you pass through. So we're still wanting to have a protected crossing there. So if Melissa can take that up too, that would be really good. We don't want a traffic light there. So,
the traffic, the general traffic coming down that street would want one there because there's another one 30 metres down. I mean, it's just madness for everybody in all directions.
it's going to be a traffic light.
About it, like sort of just trying to assure that the whole thing is considered holistically, the whole corridor, and not piecemeal.
We asked for a contract variation of the economic contract,
Hmm.
and that's when assurances came.
The active travel unit actually having input into the tender processes and stuff that are done. So that's where it all falls out.
Yes, it's major projects. I don't think they're interested in like cycling so much. It's TCCS basically plans the cycling, and this is a major projects contract, which it comes under the Andrew Bark. It doesn't come under Chris Field.
For a small enough jurisdiction, I think, to understand what public policy objectives are.
I think so.
Yeah, but we just want assurance, like they tell me it is happening, but it's,
Well, the minister's been very explicit in this part. So I'm going for what he's saying. It's very, very much active travel, 100%. Part of this.
AECOM will be driven by the wording.
That's right. What they think.
They won't deliver.
and when you get a different organisation, one planning that, one planning that, sometimes the interfaces don't work properly. Yeah.
When we asked them, I think probably
Yeah. Just
not in line with the budget.
yeah.
So it is.
And if you're paying by rail, and then you rip. And if you're
So that doesn't necessarily look at all the interfaces between Woden and the city when you're just looking at a feasibility study for Adelaide Avenue. And I guess that's the concern, that the whole corridor and all the interfaces aren't being considered. Priority. And there's Emma. I didn't see her come in. Yeah. But thank you, Emma.
Yeah, look, there is definitely a need for more active travel corridors, and actually now is a really good time to be having a conversation about it, because while everything in our community, in our society is going through this state of flux with a lot of people have been reevaluating a lot of things about the way they live their life and the way they get around. So it's a really good time having that conversation. And while the light rail infrastructure work is happening, it's also a good time to be considering how that connects up to active travel options. So having something like Maria's report coming out that takes a gender perspective on that, that's what I used to do in the community sector, and to see that work well. Achieve so I think it's great. And if we stop talking about it, I guarantee we won't get there.
I don't think we can do another petition. It's so hard work.
Yeah, and there's a lot of finance as well. I would say you're thinking about making government budget processes for next year. Then over the summer period, that would be a really good time to send in a copy of the budget to the relevant ministers and MLA from all parties to make sure that they understand what it is that your priorities are. So that there's still lots of time to have those conversations as opposed to next year's budget. I know we've just passed the budget, but honestly, it's like never ending.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of other things that can be done as well. Kettle Power have taken over. I did a map last year that mapped every single sense of infrastructure, cycling infrastructure in the ACT, and then included Kettle Power's contributions and community contributions about where cycling paths and gaps in infrastructure need to be fixed. Kettle Power have now taken that over and they're continuing the work. So it's very worthwhile having conversations with them as well about how this is being progressed. Just keep talking.
Yeah, but shouldn't there just be a process? We can talk and talk and talk, but if they just planned from one end to the other and all the interfaces as they planned the corridor, then we wouldn't have, it just should be done. But this is what we believe, but we don't see anything. The commitments, the Greens one, well, Chris Steele said recently about the Adelaide Avenue light rail one. That's Adelaide Avenue. The Greens, you've got your commitment, but how do we know? And what is the process then to consider the interfaces from one end to the other? Because it's not in the $93 million ACOM contract. So in what contract is it to consider one end to the other?
Yeah, and that's why I was saying questions they asked during hearings and more hearings about how work is progressing and where things are up to and what has actually been found. There's questions on notice that can be asked the ministers to get regular updates on how are things going and how is it progressing and what are the blockages that stop us from achieving
and so I encourage you to attend and talk to him about this.
Yeah.
I believe he's very genuinely engaged and really 100% behind exactly.
All right, well, I'll write a letter and ask, can you please tell us under what mechanism or what forum that the interfaces from one end to the other are being considered. And
give us explanation of how it's going to be considered under the ACOM contract. At a face, looking at it on the face, it's not there. The contractor won't do it of its own volition. So what is he proposing? Well, it's not his contract, it's the Chief Minister's contract. Is there going to be a contract variation, or can he give us an interpretation of what the contract means that will enable this to happen?
I will absolutely get that in writing. Chris read it on your post.
yeah.
He said it's 100% part of this contract.
But that's the Adelaide Avenue. He said Adelaide Avenue. No, he didn't say it was part of the contract. He said that that they're having a feasibility study for Adelaide Avenue, which is the same as this promise, but
how does that address all the interfaces from one end to the other? A feasibility study, that is different to what ACOM is planning. Like, how does that feasibility study interface with the ACOM? Yeah.
All right. So
That would save a lot of hits in the base.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, worthwhile, if you're finding that you're asking for things to be done and they're not progressing, it's probably because there is a barrier somewhere you a barrier that makes it comfortable. Find out what that is and address that, then we code from the barrier. And that's where government and community councils and organisations like Federal Power working collectively are able to achieve more than any individual can do. So getting together and having a conversation, asking the right questions, trying to find out what actually is the blockage here, making it hard to achieve. Right, now how do we solve that? Let's have a conversation about it.
So, yeah, can I say, I mean, it really is, there are 3 government members selected, really on them to come and bring updates on what actually is being delivered, when it's being delivered.
Look at Christina Riviera.
I've asked him 3 times to come and talk about the interchange.
To go to the information centre. But really,
Keep in mind, it's the chief minister's contract.
Yeah. But that,
he should be able
It's
to.
all the OCT. It's all the OCT. So.
Yeah.
Yes, can I just say, actually, I think you'll find that we'll be able to answer this question. Yes, major projects can deliver the infrastructure project, but they often do it on behalf of another portfolio area. The reason I know this is I'm working on the residential sector, especially with the financial pressure in Canberra, it's absolutely my responsibility, and I would fully expect that if anyone wants to know what's going on with that, they're going to come to me and ask a question, and I will be able to give them. I'm not going to be waiting on the chief minister because they're actually delivering the piece of work on behalf of the patients.
yeah, like what happens if it's a minister, say, Sports and Rec, Minister Berry? Like, how do we get the answers? She's not one of our MLAs. She won't come either.
It really is on government. The government members of each electorate. I say this, I don't say this as getting smart at it. Saying it's on the members who are in government. We should be able to come and tell you where things are at and when something is actually going to happen. As opposed to, well, you should ask questions or talk to so and so. You want actual outcomes and reports on those. Not how you should go about asking this person what questions.
Yeah, because we do try asking, and this is where the frustration comes, because we try, we write letters, we write submissions, we try, we ask them to come, we try, and we end up frustrated.
It does happen. I hope to give you an assurance that if you try and you are actually succeeding, like you are being heard, we are here listening, and Chris is very open and listening. He's 100% committed to this corridor, to this project, to light rail. We are here listening, and your input is greatly valued. And
That's nice to know, Marissa. Thank you. I don't know what happened to the recreation precinct then, or the town square. Dione feels frustrated too. I think he's just trying to tell me that he can't see or hear anything. Robin, are you there? You might have given up. Hasn't worked.
Are you there? Oh, no, I've been trying to listen. Hello?
Are you there? Here, Robin, you speak.
I can't, I'm not getting, I'm getting a very bad feed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you. You're very loud. I can't hear anything else. I can't hear anyone else. So.
Yeah, I know, because we don't have the microphones. Like, it's not worked.
Okay.
Frankly. The hybrid meeting has not worked.
The topics are great, but it's just really difficult. We don't see a screen either at home. Right,
Don't you?
online. No, I don't anyway.
Oh,
maybe.
well, it's either more practice or I don't know what we do, because we want to be able to engage people on Zoom, you know.
Well, you need to share the
more
screen
practice.
with the Zoom. You need to just share your screen.
I thought
with
I
the
was.
Zoom. Yeah.
More practice,
Okay.
Robin.
Okay. Okay. No, not critical. It's good.
First time.
They're
I
good
thought it would work
topics.
better, actually. We did practice.
They're good
It
topics.
didn't work as well as I thought it would.
I heard
I can see
Richard
your
when he-
screen, Fiona, though, if it's any consolation.
Oh, that's good. Is this microphone louder? Hello. No. Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can call the session. But I think I'd be frustrated if I was.
Yeah. If you were sitting on the Zoom and you couldn't hear a thing or see anything, I'm surprised you're still here, frankly. Yeah.
Fiona, you are very clear.
That's because I'm sitting right here. It's the speakers we haven't addressed properly, the microphones. The chat function, like last time we had the Zoom about the pool, we had heaps on the chat function, and this time we haven't. So
the other thing is, it's not, sounds like a complaint, it's not really, but it's not really. I've been
yeah, you can
getting to
complain.
raise
I'll do it.
hands and stuff, and it's we need to put a bit more effort into it. That's all. I'm sure it can be done well. Yep.
Where there's a will, there's a way, but this has not been the way. We need. I tried.
No, it's good. No, it's good. And we could hear Richard when he came out the front.
Yeah, with Richard, see, that's the problem. That microphone, you know, look, why don't we try putting this microphone in the middle? If you're talking, use that. And I don't need one. Okay. Yeah.
Just like to thank the elected members and other people who parties come here. Committee groups basically not the best word, the tip of the spear to reflect a lot of putting lights up that you're making by coming here, taking on board the concerns that this group has expressed. It's not very aesthetic. Just this room, there's lots of rooms in the electorates, so it's been really valuable.
You'll get a little chance. We'll just see, this is another thing that you know, what makes a great place. At the beginning we talked about great public spaces that attract people to them and community facilities, and if you just look at this picky of the CIT, it is going like, this is our new boulevard through here. I can't see that it's going to get much sun. Like, there's a south side of this Grand Central. And see here, it never, none of the pictures, this is where I probably get a bit of a trust problem, because none of the pictures ever say, what are we going to look like in the future? Ever. This whole thing is zoned for high rise. This is zoned for 28 stories and 24 is going in. A big 24 is going in there. This is zoned for 28. This is zoned for 28. This is zoned for 28. This is zoned for 20. Yeah. This is zoned for 16. Yeah. And it's on the land release program. Yeah. It's already on the land release program, this whole thing. So this Bow Street's been sold. So, you know, when a buyer buys it and it's got development rights, they pay a premium for development rights. What does that mean for the future? So everything, Westfield, they're going to develop too. So there is nothing, you know, on the west side, down there where the seniors is and the chemist warehouse, all that, all the way through Carina Chambers down to the picture, the trash and treasure cuppa, all zoned for 16-story towers. The Phillip service area. What's going to happen to the services? Are we still going to have a service area? Because that's zoned for 5 and 6 stories.
residential. And then we have the car yards that in the master plan had a building height, but when it got converted into the territory plan, the law, there's no building heights where the car yards are. So they can go any height they like. So, Marissa, Emma, can we get a picture of what it's going to look like in the future? And then where are the public sunny spaces? You've got like potentially 20,000 people moving in here. Where do the kids, I always thought, I learned that if you go up, one of the benefits is it creates space around the bottom so that you can have some more green space. But where are we getting that? Like in the north, they are really cramming in the towers. Potentially, you know, like the Wover site, 4 towers on 1 hectare, 800 apartments on 1 hectare. Like, so that's the standard that's been set. So I want to know, when you've got kids in 50 square metre apartments and people in pandemics in 50 square metres apartments, they've got to come out. Where do they come out to? Where is the nice space that attracts people out of their towers and into the nice space where there's streetscape and there's music and there's activity and vibrancy that people want to be there? Because I'm just not seeing it. And you can tell us that the Woden Town Park over here will be redone up, refurbed, but it's not on any desire line that people walk through. There's a cemetery there. That's why it's dead, because there's nothing at the other end that attracts you to it. And people just don't go. Yeah, I know the cemetery's nice. Very good neighbours. Yeah. Yeah, very good neighbours. But it doesn't, the cemetery, it's not, you know, like you get your string of pearls that attract you through from one thing to the next. The cemetery doesn't attract people through to this area. There's no great link through to the hospital to attract you through an active sort of corridor through to the... Yeah, right. So anyway, you can put the public space up here, but it's not a spot that people would, find themselves walking to. So they're going to put a little bit of a green spot on the north here, north of the CIT, but it's the same thing. Like when all the activity assumably is over around, the people are moving through this way. That's why the town square was in the middle. And so why do you just sort of come and sit in a little pocket park over here? Like things are going to be connected. And it's the whole, so this east-west link was supposed to be the civic sort of area where you had your library and your hotel and it had the post office and the banks and it had a church and it had all that civic sort of stuff. But now with the 24-story going in there, the westerly winds come from the west. They hit these 2 buildings. It creates a little vacuum on this side. We go swoosh through around. You get massive wind shear. It's going to flow its way down the beautiful Princess Stairs and then into the boulevard that's already overshadowed and cold and windy. And then swoosh out through the little hole in the CIT building, because that's where it will escape through. It'll get sucked out through that hole. I just can't understand where this is planning for the people. So, I mean, we keep saying about it, that it just charges on and on and on. It's really awful. So where is the public space where we're going to sit? Because this is all, the town square's dead. This is on the land release program. The Hellenic Club's got plans for that car park too. In fact, they've invited us to come and see their plans. The whole corridor, Athlone Drive corridor, has gone to development apart from the bit around the pond. So interestingly enough, it looks like a bit of a round thing, something there. There's going to potentially, through here, which is supposed to be, I don't know, is that our public space? Because it's now got a road through there because Callan Street is shut. So you go up either Easty Street or Callan Street. So rat run through to Bow Street to get up to Launceston. Even in the traffic modelling, they said that to look at your traffic hierarchy, what do you actually want here? You're pushing traffic back into the town centre. Instead of pushing it out, it's getting pushed back in. And they said this would become a major arterial. Like this will become a road instead of like a Bunda Street that's a shared sort of path. So
Grand Central's really mucked it all up.
Grand Central is being a major stuffer. And we said right at the beginning, put the Grand Central, if you have to, like we've never said don't develop. We've always been short, densify. But we said right at the beginning, don't put Grand Central on the north side of the east-west link. Put it on the south side. Then you could have had all your cafes and stuff in the sun facing north, and it would have been great. That is and these things keep happening that cannot be fixed, that are major stuff-ups. They're damaging the future of the town centre.
All the residents have to get to it, so that creates traffic right.
They can't get out. They're landlocked. So they have to go up Bow Street and this new road so they can head south. Otherwise, they would have to go up there and then around Melrose Drive to head south. Yeah, and like buses, like the manoeuvres the buses have got to make. So the whole thing, and people are not listening when we say, don't, for God's sake, put 28 stories on the north side of the town square. And nobody will listen to us because that is already very difficult as a space. It's still got hope if they could do some wind mitigation measures. But you put 28 stories there, that's it. So where is the public space? We had a great town square and now we don't. It's all piecemeal. There's no, tell us what is it going to be like in the future? All we get is we're activating the east side. Thanks. With what? I know, look, there's W2, the beautiful W2. So this is looking at from a library. There is Lubbock Tower. There's W2. The wind hits and goes swoosh through. Like, where's the wind study? How are the roads working? We've got no amenity in here, so everyone will get in their cars and drive elsewhere. If there's no pool, there's no sports, there's no culture, what they're going to give us culture. Okay, I hear we're going to get culture in the high-rise CIT, you know, so we get a room in the CIT. Okay, I guess that's better than nothing, isn't it? Yeah, look how close these are. And already the album art, no, it's the Alexander and Scarborough House. I've had quite a number of people say to me, they're looking right in on each other. The public servants are looking right into the apartments. They are really close. They are cramming them in. And it's not pleasant. And, you know, not only do these people that live here need somewhere to go out, but I thought in the cycle of life that we, you know, where as you get older, you might like to downsize, so free up the house for the next, for families and what have you. Well, you know, there's not many people that I talk to, in fact, I haven't come across one, who is really looking forward to downsizing into the town centre. So how do you draw us out of our big houses and get us down there if it's bloody awful? Anyway, just saying, nobody is listening, and I have said it for 5 years. Well, 4 can easily fit on that pool site because they've got 4 across the road on the tradie side. So like, I really don't know what we're supposed to do. We keep saying it and saying it. We've had meetings here for years and years and years with people jumping up and down and getting really upset in front of ministers, and still nothing ever, we just keep charging along.
What we have at the moment, as I understand, at the town park, Arrowwood Park, and Easty Park. But the thing is that they're our green spaces, and that's all publicly accessible for recreation and for having hundreds of thousands of new dwellings here.
I think the maintenance and renovation of those spaces is absolutely paramount, because if you look at high-rise, say in Melbourne, I know on St Kilda Road there are high-rises that probably, I don't know, 28 stories or something. They look out onto Faulkner Park, which is a huge expanse. Now, if you've got that balance, you can say, okay, I'm prepared to live in a high-rise because I have this expanse out there, lovely kind of cared for lawns where there can be recreation. People can run around, play tennis, have a cycle, walk. We absolutely need something that kind of puts a heritage value on those public recreation spaces, because if you live in a 50 metre square or whatever it is apartment, you need to get out.
And we're getting a lot of 50 square metres, a lot of them. And like, these are just examples of where things could have been better, right? This is the W2 ground floor. So this is the town square, and this here is Lovett Tower. So that's going down to the library through there. So this is the ground floor. If you've seen Verity Lane, I've got a little picky there. Verity Lane, it's all open, the ground floor between Verity Lane and Northbourne Avenue. It's all it's an upmarket food sort of place, and everybody loves it. I heard the other day it was really packed, somebody told me. Anyway, what we're getting on our ground floor is these are car parks, residents' car parks on the ground floor. This is the veneer of commercial. So the commercial is about the same size, about the depth of the car park. Yeah, I know. You said you had to go. Yeah. Thanks for coming, Emma.
Oh, thank you.
You're right.
I don't know, do you have something to say before you leave? Give us an update.
I think,
yes.
You can do it in the
best thing. Yeah, I'll do a very quick update about the petition for the sports courts if you are interested.
Yeah.
So we had the petition presented. One of the things that I think is really important is that the community consultation on any future indoor sports courts is done really well. It's really important that we're talking not just to people who are currently using sports facilities in the Woden area, but the people who would like to but can't get access to anything, so that we can really understand what the unmet demand is, and what those sporting groups and community groups, because there's also going to be groups who are looking for spaces to do, cultural dance rehearsal and performances, yoga, fitness classes, Pilates, all sorts of things, meditation groups, and possibly also some arts groups as well. They're looking for space to, where if they need a large space to do something. So it's really important that any community consultation is done well. Now, what's actually happening is we should have a facilities management plan coming soon. The Minister for Sport and Recreation agreed to that in April, and I expect that will be delivered over the summer period sometime, I guess, hopefully in February or March, when the next sittings are. And what I'm really looking forward to is seeing how that facilities management plan will enable and support that community consultation and community voices to be heard in the planning of that infrastructure. That's going to be a real key to making it work. And a key to, planning, not just to replace what we lost with the Southern Cross basketball courts and the CIT hall and things like that, but to plan for what do we actually want for the future, because it might be something that's a bit different to what we've had in the past. Everything's in a state of change at the moment. We've got, demographics are changing with the different kinds of apartments that are going in. And, as you're talking about tonight, there will be people who are looking for space where they can go and do things that they can't do in an apartment. And if you don't have a backyard, those shared spaces become even more important. So, what we had in the past may not be the same as what we want for the future. Let's have a conversation about that.
Great, thank you,
Yeah,
Emma.
you have to go, but will they extend also to the pool? We had a discussion before you go to the ride, but the plan allows for the extended pool, territory plan, And so whilst we might have a private leaseholder now on that land, in terms of that Crown lease, that site is marked for a plan, sorry, for a pool in the plan, as well as obviously what the Crown lease currently says. So that just shouldn't be disregarded. It's all part of this too.
Yeah, and look, there were some really good points made in the previous council meeting that were from you know, people who are doing squad swimming and things like that. There are people with disability who need access to pools, people with small children, there are seniors. So having a conversation about, do we want indoor or outdoor or something that enables both? Do we, you know, what size do we need? What kind of facilities do we need co-located with it to make it as useful as possible? These are the kinds of conversations we want to have, because the pool that we've got now has been there for 50 years and it's served us really well. But we're looking to the future and you know, do we want something that's better than what we've already got? Because if there is, you know, if there's an opportunity to do something different, then we want to make sure that it's as good as possible. And I think the best way to make sure that that happens is to make sure that those community voices are heard properly in the consultation.
The petition showed you have to go over, we need to resist more flat spec. That's the big thing, because we're seeing all the land being eaten up for development.
And there might be better locations for it within the Woden town centre as well, depending on what you want, what you actually need that facility to be and what you need it to do and what you need it to be co-located with as well. The current privately owned location may or may not be, you know, I wouldn't know, I'm not an expert on swimming pools, but I do know that you always get a better result if you engage the whole diversity of the community in the conversation. And that's what I'm really hoping that we'll do.
Thank you. I've got a problem going away from the planning that there was no community consultation about the ice skiing and that's really bad. Apparently they're stepping it up to another drug as well, and that hasn't gone to public consultation either. So is there actually something that you can do to make sure that it all goes to public consultation?
She's got to go.
We've got a fantastic committee member here. Yes. Thank you.
So, yeah, just to reinforce feedback, just to reinforce your point. The Grand Central Tower is on the ground floor. It's dead. It's awful.
Yeah, it's awful.
It is awful. The lobby, it's a massive lobby. You go, I look through the window and it's just banks of letterboxes.
Yes.
You think there would be a reception, a person behind a reception desk? I couldn't find.
And it's the same. The south side on the boulevard is about the depth of a car park again. So there's no creating life much in there. Not like Verity Lane, whereby you can go in there and socialise and have a nice time. Like in that one, it's all open.
Surrounded by roads.
Well, yes. Well, assumably that will change when the boulevard comes because they'll get rid of that southern road. It's the city building. But I guess all I'm making the point is there's missed opportunities where we could have had the ground floor for open for food and drink and a bar and music, and it's residents' car parks. And I actually emailed the developer about it and said, what? And he wasn't happy. The ACT government restricted the commercial space that they could have. So this is about 2,000 square metres and they're allowed 600. So you've got these are like 50 square metres, tiny little things. And so why did the ACT government restrict them from having a decent ground floor? Yeah, vested interests. Is it? Like nobody ever speaks. I'll bet you that's what it is. Yeah, well, they should have said no to Westfield. The town, this could really activate the town square. And it's a missed opportunity again. Anyway, I find it really annoying, as you can see. Really annoying. Anyway. It's like privatising our public spaces. They're getting all the sun. The residents and the public space loses the sun. The tower, the apartments gets the sun. We just inherit more wind and we don't even get the ground floor.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll be looking in Lovett Tower. Well, they'll be looking at you. Yeah. Well, at least you've still got Emu Bank, though. You've got that public space and a lake and a basketball stadium. Don't get me started. And a basketball stadium and an arts centre and a university and a pool. Yeah. You guys sort of survived the trashing of the community facilities pretty well. Yeah. Anyway, so it's probably best not to start on the bus interchange. So let's go and have some nibbles. We're going to go and have nibbles. Unless you guys want your 5 minutes. Marissa, would you like to come and, or any other? Yeah. There you go, 5 minutes. Fiona, you want to just go
Closed oval, I think I call that a box block there. If you want to make submissions on that, I think the deadline is the 10th. So just kind of, I don't know if that's.
Well, that's another hello turf, except for it's rugby. I don't think we'll be able to get in there. Yeah. They did come a month or two ago and talk to us about that one. Yes. Come up here just in case there's anybody left there.
Now, this is important for the Zoom, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
So look, PK Shadow Planning Minister, great to be with you. I have tried to get to as many community council meetings as I can, particularly my planning capacity. Look, I'll leave some cards if you want to take one, contact me later. Look, some really interesting things, significant things have happened in this last month of sitting. And perhaps you're aware of these, I will mention because they really are significant, and going forward, it's going to be really interesting to watch. The Suburban Land Agency now has the power to buy land in New South Wales. So I've been pressing the Minister on, Minister Berry in this case, okay, what are these purchases for? If it's for development, you know, residential development, what are the governance arrangements? So I'm going to keep pressing that button because I want to know what they want to do with land that they're going to purchase in New South Wales. One obvious, I suspect, immediate case for the purchase will be the Ginninderry development in West Belconnen. So Minister Berry did confirm today that their first priority is to actually get the border extended. And then after that, there's planned with some sort of really messy service arrangement where ACT will provide services. And then that I don't know what the rate situation will be for a New South Wales ratepayer compared to an ACT ratepayer. So some really interesting things to watch in that broader planning space. Due to the COVID factor have increased quite a bit because supply issues there. The price attached housing in the ACT. So the government will talk how many dwellings there will be, but the majority of those are apartments. And as we showed, Canberra's preference for housing is a standalone home on a reasonable size parcel. Now, we can't keep doing that forever, of course, but the balance is wrong, in my opinion. We have had with procurement, so the government's budget was kind of passed. Procurement bills were passed this week. Obviously, we're looking with eagerness what that's going to produce. I saw briefings from the Minister after the district forums are finished, and I was told by his department everything I need is on the website, which is pretty insulting to a shadow planning minister. So I pressed the Minister during the estimates. Minister, this is not very, not very proper conduct. And so we promised a briefing. It probably can't happen this year because look, there's lots of things. We want to amend something that we all agreed on in Parliament this week, and that is to reserve Canberra. There's 31. And so there was a motion, we want the government to look into how these can be restored to some form of usefulness, given that many of them are actually adjacent to primary schools and high schools. I had an amendment that said ensure that these are excluded from commercial development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's one that I'm almost happy about this week, although there's some big things happening. And so Marissa and I were obviously on the select committee inquiring Mike Pedersen's drug bill to decriminalise possession of small quantities of substances like ice, heroin, cocaine, etc., etc. Of that committee, Marissa was the deputy chair. It's actually over now, so we have to talk in past tense. And I presented a committee report Tuesday morning. So the three members really are agreed on the government needing to resource the drug support and health sector much more strongly, and look at innovative ideas on how to help people who are caught up with these harmful addictions. Where I dissented was that the bill should not be passed at all. So my view was, and it's all published, it's on the legislation website, that the decriminalisation bill, which I assume will be debated next year, should not be passed. And these things, we should use everything in our arsenal to make sure people are kept away from these horrible things. But so, look, I know there's time is short, and Bruce is going to speak.
Sorry.
Happy to take any one or two questions, or you can see me later. Beg your pardon?
No. You can talk to Peter about light rail after over nibbles, Nora, over nibbles.
I hand over to
Marissa.
Former deputy chair of the.
Be careful of those cords, Peter, don't trip on that.
Those here most appropriate for the
Yeah.
online, and I can just see.
Yeah.
So just again, an update. The last week, I think we've had 3 sitting weeks in the last month. So one of the motions that I moved was to basically that the government accepts this Herway report. So this is basically a gendered look at active travel and public transport, and how women engage or don't engage with both of those things in the electorate, particularly with the perspective of light rail disruption coming, and what we can do to support women to engage with active travel and public transport. And, I'm quite happy to hear that a lot of the stuff that you are advocating for, this is in the report, this is what people want to see. And, we need better facilities, better park and ride facilities. We need, so basically there were sort of 3 levels of recommendations, one around communication, so how people engage with the system, like whether it's through apps, through mapping tools, whether people need support to map their routes, what kind of organisations and stakeholders can be involved in those types of conversations, because that was a bit of a barrier to people just not knowing where to even start. The infrastructure, so obviously the network, the bike paths, improving all of that, end of trip facilities, bike parking, and the sort of broader ecosystem, and so how to engage all the different stakeholders in this conversation, and engage with the different views, e-bikes, that type of thing, end of trip facilities, and also the government's what's it called? Flexible workplaces. So they're trialling 2 different sites as part of this year's budget promises. And yeah, I think in the sort of COVID environment, I think this will be really interesting to see how these workplaces go for the ACT government. And yeah, I guess having people work outside of the city in the suburbs and in Woden town centre and other, you know, utilising the town centres a bit more, I think will be really interesting. So that was one particular motion. The other one, so I introduced a bill into the Assembly that currently the Public Place Names Act, it's still, you know, the Minister and the Place Names Committee, they recommend famous people for public places to be named after. And as part of those famous people, we still recognise colonisers in the legislation. So my amendment to the legislation was to remove colonisers and add in people who have contributed to reconciliation in our community. So I worked really closely with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elected body on this one, and had their full support to do this. And it was, yeah, tabled in the Assembly this week, which was really exciting. The other thing that I think, Fiona, you'll be very interested in, the hospital master plan.
Yes, don't get me started on that.
I know, I won't get you started on that today, please. But that's one for next year, and I'm sure Petition will be very happy to come and have a chat to you about what they're sort of, I think at the last meeting, I'm not sure if it was Woden or Western Creek, but they were sort of saying we're on the tip of having the report and the recommendations and, you know, where this is all going. So they've got it now. That was released today. So yeah, that will be a really interesting one for people to engage with next year, and what that whole sort of campus design, which I know you're really invested and interested in, what that will look like going forward. Yeah, so I think that's about it for this afternoon, this evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Marissa.
Happy Christmas to everyone. I hope you really have a lovely break.
Thank you, Marissa, and thanks for coming to our meetings.
Her way, that's the report.
Yep.
Most welcome.
Let's have nibbles.
We noticed it had a bail.
Great, great.
All the recommendations are very relevant. We have one comment here today.
Yes.
Female rider.
Yes.
Talked about, she's basically saying separation is critical.
Yep.
From traffic.
Yep.
And we have a weird situation in ACT, the way our bike paths are developed. We have bike lanes on 80 kilometre.
Yeah.
So obviously we've got to do more of this separated cycleways.
I agree. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, Tony. And thank you for everyone supporting Woden Valley all year long. And that's
So we sort of cross paths a little bit.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Hello, Kristen. I don't actually know. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
It's interesting. And big gentleman has the height to get up and say all the football league is a he's got the height. If we did that, guess what? We would
Just because I'm writing.
And obviously, I haven't had the opportunity. So I'll give it a go. Fired up there.
Oh, I do because
No, I've seen it before.
I've seen you get fired up before.